Golmud Railway to Golmud is the best map in Battlefield 6. I know I said the same with Contaminated too, but hey, that's called progress. And despite all the positive feedback of this remake, with people enjoying, finally, a decently sized Battlefield map, there are still some voices that aren't too happy with the remake of Golmud Railway, with some saying that the map is way too big, which sounds absolutely ironic actually, and others criticizing how unpredictable and clustered the map has become. But what if I told you that these people ain't that wrong? What critique is actually justified at this point, and what are the weaknesses of Railway to Golmud? As a Swiss citizen and also being masters in neutrality, I've done some digging, analyzed Railway to Golmud and the original from Battlefield 4, compared them with each other, and probably found out why people, despite the great remake, still struggle to enjoy the map. And by the way, without spoiling too much, there are actually certain aspects that the original did way better. But let me show you what I found out. Let's go through the list step by step. The first and the most obvious point is size. Railway to Golmud is so far the biggest map in Battlefield 6. It's 4 times bigger than Mirak Valley, offers long distance fights in the south and CQC action in the north. Size-wise, we can't complain at all. As infantry and of course vehicle, we finally have enough space to properly breathe on the map. I know that some people though, who like to play CQC, complain about the focus on the vehicles on the map, but in this case, that's more of a personal problem actually. Because, sorry to tell you, there is no shortage of small maps in the game right now. Even though Railway to Golmud is just a little bit smaller than the original version, it still delivers what we asked for. Enough space to move on the ground and in the air. It's nice to see that transport vehicles have finally gained some purpose, especially air vehicles. Just look out for these towers. Ach du Scheiße! But, as you might already know me from the previous video, size ain't the only and most important aspect to make a great Battlefield map. Next, the level design. Even though the map is a remake from the original, DICE has changed a lot. The assets are of course different because they reuse different parts of other maps, but the core identity with the main elements still remains the same, like roads, the bridge and the points of interest. They've also added more vegetation, more cover and more buildings, so gameplay wise, everyone actually benefits from this, especially the infantry. But why do people then complain about the map being too clustered? I mean, vehicles still dominate the battlefield, that's for sure. But why are many infantry players then still complaining about too much cover? Especially in the north with Echo and Foxtrot? I think I understand their concerns, but I don't think it's about the level design itself. The problem here, and the biggest issue of the map in general, are the objectives, which perfectly shows us the difference between DICE 2013 and DICE today. Now all the objectives remain on the same location as on original. Some objectives like George, Able and Delta even have the same layout. An open space or a courtyard with multiple buildings around it. These are fine, except George maybe, which is kinda in a disadvantage with the height differences. That way, anyone attacking objective George has a high ground standing on a bridge compared to the original. So basically, a death trap. See? Even the maps in the day weren't perfect. And all the remaining objectives on the remake have also become worse. Check this out. Objective Foxtrot on the original was a whole neighborhood. You had a main road that went through the middle of the objective with multiple buildings around it. And all of that was in that objective. Foxtrot on the remake, however, contains one single building. I mean, I'm glad it's still a building and not an open place, but it's still quite underwhelming to see all those assets and buildings not being used for an objective. And hell, don't even get me started on Echo. Echo was a bit smaller than Foxtrot in the original, but it still, again, had a road through the middle with at least 3 or 4 buildings within the objective. Unfortunately though, on the remake, they've completely redesigned the area and moved the objective a bit to the north. And now it's being squeezed between multiple buildings that resembles some sort of market area. Unlike Foxtrot, Echo is again completely designed like a death trap. I mean, you even have a stationary machine gun right outside the objective on a high ground facing towards the objective. Man, even the original had 4 turrets facing outside. Look guys, I'm not a military expert, alright? But even I know the purpose of an objective and how you should create a perimeter/defensive line to actually defend your position. If this area here must be secured, no squad leader in real life would place their soldiers between those buildings to defend this place. And I think that's the issue with people saying that the northern part is too clustered. It's not because of the existence of a lot of cover, it's about all those assets not being integrated into an objective. Because the problem with all this, people are getting mad because they're being shot from unexpected areas, getting shot from the side buildings and avenues. But what if the objective areas would contain multiple buildings and streets? That doesn't just make the objective bigger and your defensive line way better, but also, guess what? Notifies you when an enemy is in the area. An objective is not just a regular flag that gives you points. An objective is a tool for strategy and gameplay. If Echo will now contain all these buildings right here, I can move way more comfortable knowing that I'm in a secured area. But if the objective remains this small, with so much buildings and high ground around it, it's obvious that people say they can't breathe up there. It's not depending on the amount of assets. Same with Baker on the south, for example. On the original, Objective Baker involved both hangars, but here it's just the right one, the smaller one. Even though there ain't much cover down there, I don't feel safe after capturing it. There's always a possibility that someone spawned in while I was attacking the objective, got on the high ground, and is now waiting for me to leave the building to snipe me in the head. Oh, the worst of all though is Objective Charlie. On the original, we had one wagon with 2 stationary machine guns that came with a huge circle as a capture area. Now we get an entire train with multiple wagons, but for some reason, only the 2 wagons in the middle are relevant. Why not the entire train? Most of the time I'm sitting with my squad in the middle, not even noticing that some enemies are already on the front side and about to hijack the train. A longer objective in this case would at least, same as on Echo, warn us about incoming enemies. But right now, you're nothing but literally sitting ducks up there. It's by far the worst death trap objective I've ever seen. And it's just nothing but sad to see this, because objective designs like these do not encourage any type of PTFO or team play at all. The worst part is actually, DICE knows how to make good objectives. They have an entire library of perfect examples, and yet they even continue to literally worsen the map. And you perfectly see this, especially on Escalation and Breakthrough, where they made their own objective areas. On Escalation, Baker is an exception and actually decent, but Foxtrot and Echo are absolutely terrible. One is on a street with big rocks around it, and the other one is right on a street crossing. On Breakthrough, one is on a hangar with a high ground, and the other right next to it. In the second sector, Objective Able doesn't even cover the whole area, allowing defenders who already have an advantage to sneak on the attackers. And not even the last sector on Breakthrough has any other building as the objective. I mean, they put so much effort to redesign the entire northern part just to make 2 shitty objectives. Instead of making the region more alive and more enjoyable, they've turned it into an unpredictable maze with lots of corners to hide, with no tactical meaning at all, besides camping and farming people who actually do PTFO. And with that, passively wasted their entire work. That is definitely the main problem. But unlike the other maps of Battlefield 6, there's one more aspect that has been almost brought to perfection, which you probably know at this point as the 3-liner rule. Due to the enormous size, it allows players to scatter all over the map. And with the objectives being far away from each other, combined with lots of cover and height differences, there are 4 different main roads where each team scatters, which balances the engagement of the map and reduces the overall cluster. But most importantly, it allows proper flanking. But unfortunately, due to the objective positions, the idea of the 3-liner rule is being significantly reduced. Check this out. If we take a closer look, you realize that all the objectives, except for Abel and George, are in the center of the map. It's as if someone took a regular, linear map and turned it to 90 degrees. There ain't many maps that are designed like this. The only other map that comes to my mind is Parasol Storm, where pretty much all the objectives were also in the center. Now I don't want to judge early, but when the leaks about the remake of Golmud Railway showed up a couple of months back, some people started to ask why they made a remake of this instead of a Gulf of Oman, a Davamont Peak, or Siege of Shanghai. I think they've picked this one to align with the standards of Battlefield 6, which is forcing players always to play in a stalemate. Because Railway to Golmud is one of the few maps where I say that escalation works far better than regular conquest. Cause there we have 2 more additional objectives on the northern part where flanking has a bigger purpose. On conquest, let's say you're NATO and trying to capture Echo for example, you can flank the enemy from the south or from the north, with the main purpose of neutralizing enemies that are moving to Foxtrot, which is under your control, and trying to capture Echo. Yeah, that's a typical flanking maneuver. There's nothing wrong with that. But on escalation, however, at the beginning of the match at least, you also have the option to skip Echo and move down to Baker, surrounding the enemies on Echo and establishing a control point near the enemy spawn. As I said before, an objective is not just a flag that gives you points. It's a control zone, a spawning area, allowing tactical maneuvers and diverse gameplay. Don't get me wrong here, the layout of Conquest is not bad, but escalation just works better. I mean, after all those tiny maps where flanking was very limited, players just become tired of constant stalemates. People ask for more diversity and tactical options. Sure, the moving train towards the enemy spawn is a nice addition, which can also be used to flank and attack an enemy objective, but a permanent objective closer to your and the enemy spawn would just split the players in the northern region, reduce the player intensity, and with that, relieve the experience, giving space to breathe for the infantry, which also reduces that clustered feeling that people were talking about. So, as you can see, despite all the positive feedback for this remake, it certainly is not free from any issues. But it's a very great map for the Battlefield 6 standards though, which was desperately needed at this point. Like the original, it's not a map for everyone, since it's heavily focused on vehicle gameplay, but it's definitely not terrible for a Battlefield map. It's also more infantry friendly than the original. It's actually the one delivering the closest Battlefield experience as we know. The only major issue of the map right now, besides the unfriendly PTFO design and some small issues with the balancing regarding extra vehicles on the objectives, is the broken netcode in the middle. This needs to be fixed ASAP. I think that's where we can all agree on. Now I hope this could explain the critique behind the map and help the community out within those discussions. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed the ride, and I see you guys in the next video.